Okay, well, since we don't have a board chair just yet, I guess I will act in that capacity for this meeting. But hopefully by next meeting, we'll have that process taken care of. First, welcome. I think I've met everyone on the call except Kim Bruce, who I want to welcome. Why don't we do a round of quick introductions to just kind of understand who you are, what your relationship is to this commission. So are you a newly appointed commissioner? Are you a guest? Do you represent another organization, etc.? I won't have you name your favorite color or, your favorite Main Street business or something like that. But let's at least figure out who each other are, and that might help the conversation, or at least give it some context. So I'll start out, and then I guess I'll just call on people. So my name is Matt, and I've been with the city for about 4.5 years now as the Economic Development Manager. In the past, my role has not... I have not been the Main Street program manager. We've had a full-time program manager for Main Street, and that was Nancy Hoffman. She did an excellent job, but she decided to retire right about the time, the spring of 2020, right about the time the pandemic really took off. And so it was timely for her. So right now, the city is going to try out merging the role of Main Street Manager and Economic Development Manager and see how that goes in terms of workload and just generally whether or not there's, if it's going to work, I guess. That adjustment to staffing could be made really at any point in the future. If we do rehire a Main Street program manager, I foresee that it would probably be a part-time position, which would be a little bit different than the full-time role we've had in the past. But we're going to kind of muddle through and do a little trial and error and see what works. But for the time being, you're stuck with me. And I really am a Main Street believer. I think it's a great economic development tool, especially for small cities. And it's been very effective in the state of Oregon in particular, especially in those places that have really embraced it. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Main Street program today, how it works. And then by the end of the meeting, kind of get into the Estacada application of it. And then in Thursday's meeting, Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember, the 21st, we'll get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of how we're actually going to spend our time and focus our energy and all that kind of good stuff. So I guess that's enough from me. Let's see here. I'll start out with who I see first on my screen, and that's Rebecca. Do you want to jump in and give a quick intro?
Sure. Rebecca Kahani. I own and operate Holockburn Farm just out of town. And I also manage the HF Garden Project, which is our nonprofit. I'm a Cancer. I like candlelit dinners and long walks on the beach.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for that concise intro. Connie.
Good morning, Connie Redmond. I've been with, it used to be the Estacada Development Association, I think probably since 2010, 9, something like that. And, I've just been so excited and pleased with what we've done, the Broadway landscape, facade improvement, bike plaza, all that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that we're still doing something, might be under a different name, Downtown Estacada Commission. I am really excited to see some new faces. And Kim Bruce, so good to see you. I first met Kim years ago when she helped out on a bike ride, and she's had a lot of changes in her life, becoming a mom and a wife and all that stuff. And I'm so excited to be working with her again. She's got a lot of energy and good ideas. And also the other new folks, thank you so much. Really looking forward to getting back into the swing of making Estacada what it is. Really good.
Thank you, Connie. Okay, well, on that note, let's jump to Kim Bruce.
Let's see if I'm on mute here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's great to be here. As Connie said, I'm Kim Bruce. And this is my first, I guess, first involvement with the city, other than just volunteering some time here and there and spending my money on Main Street. And so my primary thing is a stay-at-home mom, but I do freelance marketing consulting, primary clients being law firms. And I just here in Estacada wanting to give some extra free time to my city. And we plan on being here in Estacada for a very long time. And so just wanted to start somewhere, and this commission opportunity came up. So here I am.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay.
So you have some marketing background and professional expertise, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Sounds good. How about Tanley?
There we go. My button wasn't working. Good morning, everybody. My name is Emily Spencer. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes. I can. Yep.
Good. My husband and I, Luke, own Clackamas River Outfitters. We've been doing what we've been doing for, well, since 2015, May. And since then have been grown very, very fond of Estacada and have a vested interest in the health and vitality of economic growth for the city itself, residents that live here, and want to be a part of making it as great as it can possibly be. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Bedoin, and I have been the owner of Harmony for the last year. My husband and I, actually. But I grew up in Estacada and basically grew up here at the bakery. So very invested in this place and invested in this town. Only a little bit of experience with Main Street about a year ago, maybe, with a curbside appeal seminar, which I found really valuable. So I'm excited to hopefully get some more connection with all of you, and also just some more tools to help develop the town and our communities. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see here, Brenda.
Hello, I manage Reliance Connects, and I've lived here all my life. I've been involved in a lot of organizations in Estacada and school and city. And this is my second term with DEC.
Perfect, thanks. I'll also add, and I hope it's okay, we love to have participation from business owners on the DEC, and we have that this term, which is really exciting. We also would like engagement from property owners, and Cascade Utilities Reliance Connects owns several properties downtown off of Broadway Street, maybe one on Broadway Street. Are there any? Well, oh, your main building there on what is that? Third and Broadway.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and we have a few guests. Bruce.
Hi, Bruce James. I used to serve on the board and recently stepped down, and now I'm a citizen volunteer, but always been interested in development in the city of Estacada and make sure that the development is consistent with what Estacada has achieved so far. So I want to continue in some capacity.
Perfect. We're glad to have you, Bruce. Yeah, Bruce has been with us for a while, and so one thing that we'll mention towards the end of this meeting is that there is the DEC board, and you really set the agenda and the direction of the organization, but there are also subcommittees. And so Bruce, I think it's your intent to continue working on a couple of the subcommittees. Is that right?
That's true. Yes.
Okay, perfect. How about Taylor?
By the way, before we finish, My middle name is Kim. So we, got,
There we go.
we have two Bruce Kims,
Okay.
or Kim Bruces, whichever way you want to look at it.
Nice. Okay, yeah, Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I am new around here a little bit. I moved to Estacada 5 years ago, and then I opened a clothing boutique online in 2019, and then opened our storefront in downtown Estacada just in October of last year.
And what's it called?
It's called Lennox J Boutique.
Perfect.
So just one.
Any
What was
idea on any idea on Julie's whereabouts this morning?
I'm not sure. She may not have seen the email.
Okay.
I can text her and see if she wants to hop on.
That'd be great if you could.
Yeah, I'll text her real quick.
Okay, thanks. So Julie is our 7th commissioner, and she is, I guess maybe not business partners, but they, Taylor and Julie both occupy that what used to be the Bank of the West building, and Julie has a jewelry business, and Taylor's is clothing. All right, Brent.
Hey, good to see everybody. Sorry, I'm having problems with my camera. Otherwise, you sadly would see me, but that can't happen. So anyway, I am the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce currently, and there's obviously a close working relationship between the Chamber and the DEC. Many of the Chamber businesses are downtown businesses. And so we just want to make sure we're a good partner, a helpful partner in all that the DEC is doing. And so I'm representing the Chamber, and just want everybody to know we are here to help. We are here to make Estacada better in any way that we can make that happen. So thanks for letting me be here.
Perfect. Thanks, Brent. Okay, last but not least, Justin Gates.
Hey everyone, Justin here as a city councilor, just the liaison, going to be listening in and hearing what you guys have to talk about and say. So appreciate everybody's time.
We're appreciative of your time and making that connection between the council and this commission. Okay. We did have a few other people on our guest list who haven't quite made it in, and that's totally fine, but I will just say that there's a good core of volunteers behind DEC. So think of yourselves, I guess, as we start this conversation, really as sort of the agenda setters and the policymakers and the idea thinkers for the downtown revitalization effort. And know that there's a good body of volunteer woman and manpower behind you to make the things that we talk about happen as we start to develop more of an agenda, not necessarily a meeting agenda, but rather an agenda for what this commission wants to accomplish. Anything anyone wants to say or add before we kind of hop into the presentation discussion part of this meeting? Alrighty. So let me try again to share the screen. Okay, and go there. All right, so I assume you all see the slides again.
Yes.
Perfect. So some of you have had some version of this presentation, and I guess I'll just ask for your patience while those who are brand new to the Main Street approach get sort of a first experience with it. So the Main Street model, or the Main Street approach, or the Main Street program, depending on how you want to refer to it, is something that originates at the federal level through a federally backed program called Main Street America. I can't tell you exactly how old it is, but at least a couple decades. And the program's been really effective in really revitalizing what were otherwise sort of dormant or abandoned, deteriorating in many cases, downtowns across the country. And the the program that they've developed has been sort of a time-tested model for how to breathe new life into communities and make downtown not just a place of business, but also a place that people feel sort of sentimental attachment to, so that they want to spend time there and spend money there and be proud of it, and have it really be the living room and the front door, I guess, of the community that that really shows the curb appeal and the and is a good representation of the positive trajectory of the city generally. I think without a vibrant downtown, it's probably not real likely you're going to have a flourishing industrial park or, you know, other components of the city, you know, may not flourish, have a downtown that's dying. And so it kind of becomes pretty important to focus a lot of energy here. And so the city council has really backed the Main Street program, not only during this most recent period when it's been the Downtown Estacada Commission, but even previously when it was the Estacada Development Association, a standalone nonprofit entity. The council was supportive then as well, and not just in word, but financially. So we appreciate the ongoing support of the council, and now the more, I guess, formal structure and bringing it underneath the umbrella of the city. So yeah, I don't want to be the person who reads from slides, but as I just mentioned, downtown kind of is a symbol of community health, and says a lot about a community. And so that's kind of why it behooves us to focus energy there. If you can think of a city that's really booming but has a dying downtown, I would challenge you to name it. It probably exists, but I would venture to guess that those examples are few and far between. I never want to disparage other communities, but I'll also point to examples like a close neighbor, and that would probably be Molalla. Molalla, I'm not sure the genesis of it, but at some point, the private sector seems to have brought, you know, this development complex outside of the downtown, where there's now a Safeway and a big strip mall, fast food, if I'm not mistaken, and other things. There's nothing wrong with that. But now you see a lot of economic activity in that city focused on that area, and it seems to be to the detriment of downtown. They're having a heck of a time making their downtown happen, as that other development kind of, I don't want to say took its place, because there's no replacement for a downtown, but I think you get the idea. So again, don't want to disparage other communities, but I think that's an example of a situation that's hard to rebound from when you focus energy elsewhere in the city to the maybe to the detriment of downtown. So downtown acts as many things, and that's why we focus energy there. Again, it's an incubator for small businesses. So many of the businesses in Estacada, probably most all of them, fall into the category of small businesses. But when you think of even the smallest of the small, the sole proprietors and things like places like that, downtown is the place where people can oftentimes find affordable lease space in storefronts that are reasonable size, where they can give their business a go. And independent businesses are those things that, again, add to the placemaking aspect of a downtown. You know, independent businesses really add to the personality of a city when you have independently owned clothing stores, for example, instead of a Forever 21 or whatever the example might be. These are the things that people really appreciate and that give a city its identity and pride. I've been mentioning this, but the placemaking aspect of downtown revitalization, I would argue, is probably one of the most important pieces. So yes, you want a place that's vibrant commercially, but you also want it to feel nice and look nice and to be of high quality. I think if there were a decision to be made again about whether or not to redo the Broadway streetscape, if I had a vote in that initiative, I'd vote 1,000 times yes to do it. I think it pays dividends and just really adds to downtown and the place aspect of it. There's research that shows that places that have a vibrant city core and gathering place, they have a correlation with populations that have a higher self-reported state of well-being. Social capital is a term that's often used to refer to the connectivity in a community. So are people isolated and don't really interact with one another and just stay to their homes and go to their jobs and then sleep there, versus a city that's well connected, that trusts one another, and that works towards common goals together? That's social capital. Higher self-esteem, better physical health, longer lifespans. So I know that may sound like a bit much, but there's evidence out there in the research to demonstrate that places that have a strong sense of place have all these other great side effects. Yeah, so one of our other partners is Clackamas County Tourism. They've been great in funding initiatives and partnering with us to market downtown and to market the city, market the recreation opportunities. The reason why I mention them is one of their overarching goals is to get people to linger longer in places. And I think that that's really what placemaking is about as well. When you have a place that people are fond of, they want to spend more time there, which means they want to spend more money there and come back more often. This is an interesting one, and what this is trying to say is that historically, the belief has often been that people will find work, and then that's where they end up moving to. They do all of their job. But increasingly, not only baby boomers, Gen Y, but then especially millennials are finding where they want to live and finding the quality of life that they want and the culture that they want, and then finding work instead of the other way around. And so when we talk about a way to really do economic development and attract a strong workforce and better jobs and things like that, I think that also points to why we want to focus on downtown revitalization. I think I'll probably skip this one. So what does this mean for Estacada, and how does this all fit together? So I mentioned that this Main Street America program originates at the national level. There's a state level coordinating program as well. And so that's our main point of contact. We rarely have much interaction with the national level organization, except if you attend a national conference, which some of us did a couple years back. But we have local state conferences where Main Street leaders from across the state gather, trade ideas. There's speakers invited that have subject knowledge, expertise that we can learn from about all sorts of things, good design, lighting, events that not only people love, but also don't lose money. All sorts of best practices that are shared at the national and state conferences and quarterly meetings. So if any of you want to attend those, that's always an open invitation, and I'll make sure that you're aware of those. So the Oregon Main Street program sets up a tiered system for its member cities or member communities. The baseline is called Exploring Downtown. And these are cities that are just sort of barely taking an interest in trying to implement the Main Street model, just getting started. The next step is called Transforming, and that's usually achieved by having a part-time staff person dedicated to the work of downtown revitalization, and just a higher level of engagement with the state program, with peer communities, and starting to have some newsworthy accomplishments that they can point to as part of their revitalization effort. The highest tier is called a Performing Downtown, and in 2018, downtown Estacada was named a Performing Downtown in the state of Oregon. So we're pretty proud of that and would like to maintain that, although I will say there is some possibility that we may get stepped down to transforming, and that's not for lack of achievement or anything like that. It would simply because of the staffing situation, where we may go to a part-time staff person. I know the state level program manager fairly well, and I hope to convince her that between a full-time economic development manager and a part-time Main Street manager, that we're fully staffed and ought to remain at the performing level, but we'll see if I can make a convincing argument. So like I mentioned, there's an annual conference. This past year it was virtual. We hope to, of course, have a in-person conference sooner than later. There are smaller workshops and trainings. For performing downtowns, we do get some access to technical assistance. So for example, if we wanted to hire some sort of a consultant to help us with project X, Y, or Z, we do get a little bit of funding from the state in order to make that happen. They do research and surveys that they share out that can be important and helpful in guiding our activities. So I guess that looks like these historic surveys, community assessments. Other resources, so that looks again more like technical assistance, but it could also be white papers and things like that that we can learn from. Finally, this Main Street Revitalization Grant is a pretty big one, and it's just a few years old now. The state program through the legislature has had 2 different cycles of several $1 million to disperse throughout the state in order to renovate existing or construct new buildings in downtown Main Street communities throughout the state. In the first round, we applied and weren't funded. In the second round, we applied in partnership with the Broadway building, so where Mossy Rock, Award Embroidery, the Insurance Mart, and there's also an apartment upstairs. That property owner, his name is Ken, and we did a co-application with Ken and did get funded. So you've seen that project come together over the course of the past year, and it's now completed. And that was funded mainly through the revitalization grant. The property owner contributed, and urban renewal of the city, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment, also contributed a smaller portion. I'll just let you take a glance at this, but these are sort of like the bragging rights, I guess, of the state program. Since the state program was founded in 2010, they point to these indicators of success. Every quarter, I turn in a report to them and go over some of these things. You know, what has the private sector invested in downtown? What is the public sector? Are businesses closing? Are they opening? So those are net new businesses. You know, are businesses expanding? Are their jobs growing, et cetera? So that was all pretty high level stuff. I want to start diving down now into what this means for Estacada and what this means for you as a commission, and then the committees that work with the commission. So kind of as I've highlighted, this the Main Street program, I would define it, at least through my lens or from where I sit, as an economic development strategy. I guess you could call it different things, a community development strategy, or maybe something different, but it's comprehensive. So even though it's economic development, it's comprehensive in the sense that it doesn't just look at starting new businesses and recruiting new jobs, which are the main metrics that you use for economic development. It's also focused on these other areas. So you see economic vitality there as one of the 4 points, but the 3 others are just as important. So design, as you see there, the text may be a little bit small for you, but it says create an inviting and inclusive atmosphere. So that's not just how things look. It's certainly, that's a big part of it, but it's also about creating an environment that's welcoming to, you know, not only say millennials who tend to spend a lot of time in downtowns, but it's also creating an environment that's open to and welcoming to people of all demographics, kids, teenagers, aging adults, both genders, people across the orientation spectrum, people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. So design sort of has an eye on all of those things. Certainly, again, enhancing the quality and the overall aesthetic, but keeping an eye on how downtown can be welcoming across all of those groups that I just mentioned. Promotion in Estacada in the past has mainly focused on the creation and execution of events that bring people downtown. But promotion is not just about events. It's about marketing the district and its assets, as it says there. So that can look like a lot of things, but it probably looks like smart marketing in some form or another on top of the events. Organization is one component that we've been sort of lacking in, but this is the area where you have a committee dedicated to sort of building partnerships, engaging with the community, maybe publishing a newsletter to talk about what downtown is doing, recruiting volunteers and engaging those volunteers in meaningful work so they don't feel, either like their time is being wasted or that they get used so much that they burn out, which is probably the biggest problem. But these are the 4 points of the Main Street approach, and these are the 4 committees that we will have that work under the board. So all of these things, as it says on the left there, it's really meant to be community driven. So even though you have this model, Main Street is not prescriptive. It doesn't say that you have to have a certain theme downtown, or it doesn't say that you have to have a certain number of events, or, I guess you get the idea. It's the community that determines, and in our situation, it will be the DEC that determines what the priorities should be for revitalizing downtown Estacada, as opposed to just any downtown in any city USA. Asset-based means that it's focused on enhancing the assets that we have rather than trying to sort of contrive or force or recruit or, otherwise sort of insert some new identity or some new flagship business, the next big shiny thing that we're going for because some other city and some other state did it and it worked for them. That's not what Main Street is about. It's about looking at what makes Estacada Estacada and selling that and enhancing that and building on that. So, again, I guess I'll zoom through these since I just blabbered about it, but design is mainly about physical improvements in partnering with the private sector, and in our case, the city and urban renewal to make those happen. You see just a few examples in the graphics here. We could have plugged in our own examples here, and we can look at those maybe in the design committee meeting generally, but the buildings that you've been seeing transforming downtown have been with input of the design committee. So the dance studio, for example, the building that Julie Cooper designs and Lennox J Clothing Tailor's shop occupies. I just mentioned the Broadway building, New Panda, the Chinese restaurant. There's, Clackamas River Outfitters, their current building, as well as their former one where Yo Treats is at. These are all projects that have been in partnership with urban renewal. It's where much of the funding comes from, in addition to the private property owners, but the design committee has influenced each of those projects. The other part of design is educating. For better or worse, in Estacada, we have a very small handful of buildings that are truly historic. There are many that are old, but only a handful that I think really have architecture that we really need to focus on preserving. And so the design committee would be trying to assist those property owners, not only with maintenance, but educating them in what an appropriate way to preserve that architecture might be. Oftentimes you see historic buildings that get sort of mutated into something that's no longer historic. And in order to get them back to their historic condition, things have to be undone. And that's not what we want to do. We'd like to see the renovations that happen in a way that respects the historic architecture. And placemaking, I've mentioned that. The Economic Vitality Committee, that's a separate one. They're really focused on helping new businesses and existing businesses to grow and to locate into downtown and or expand their businesses downtown. That can take different forms. It could be a program to get people to do more local shopping. It could be doing a poll throughout the community to understand what's needed downtown, what's needed more of, or in some cases maybe less. But they're really all about building the downtown economy. They have some crossover with the design committee, and we've experienced that in Estacada and seen that as well. In the sense that while the design committee is focused a lot on the built environment, the Economic Vitality Committee is also sort of out there looking for other opportunities to take properties that are not really contributing anything to downtown and getting them into a condition where they are able to contribute to downtown, not only visually, but economically. I mentioned the promotion committee. Again, in Estacada, it's been mainly events. We'd like to see that expand to more savvy marketing to attract not only visitors, but perhaps especially residents to be spending more time and money downtown. Yeah, I mentioned the events. Estacada gets a little shout out here with the Harvest Festival. The organization committee, again, I touched on all of these, but just by way of repetition, many Main Street organizations throughout the state and the country are nonprofit organizations, independent. They don't have a direct association with the city other than being close partners. So we're a little bit unique in that our funding comes through the city for both staffing as well as project-oriented work. But one thing that the organization committee can look at in a situation such as ours is a way to establish a revenue stream that can make the program self-sufficient so that the program isn't just taking from the city's general fund every year, but rather generating its own revenue, adding to the general fund, and then operating off of that. So that's something we could do better at, and that we haven't done much of in the past, is looking at how to become more self-sufficient financially. I mentioned volunteer development and recruitment, engaging volunteers, building partnerships with other groups in the community. That could be the Chamber of Commerce, that could be the school district, that could be some of the assisted living facility. I mean, it could be, you name it. In any community organization that would like to partner with, we probably should be. And then organization tends to be that communications and PR piece. So not necessarily the marketing, but rather spreading the word of the good work that downtown is doing in order to establish that sort of credibility and presence in the community. There's a few case studies here that we can spin through. I won't spend a lot of time on them, but Dayton is one city that's been really successful with embracing and seeing positive results from their program. Staten as well, just outside of Salem, has seen a lot of progress. And then maybe one that we're most familiar with because we've been there is Astoria. So you see the Fort George Brewery project, which was a biggie, one that they often get a lot of recognition for. That also was a partnership with the city of Astoria's urban renewal program, but these ideas and business initiatives oftentimes originate in the Main Street downtown organization. Finally, on top of the 4-point approach, there's these 8 guiding principles. I don't know that we need to spend a bunch of time here either going through each one, but it kind of ties back to a lot of what I've been saying here, that this isn't a standalone deal. It's about partnerships. It's not about landing the next big anchor department store that's going to rescue your downtown in terms of tax base and job base. It's about small incremental improvements that over time make downtown something that is representative of the values of the community, the priorities of the community, and the personality of the community. I mentioned it's comprehensive. It's not just about economic development. It's community and grassroots driven. It's about quality, change. Number 8, implementation oriented. I think what they're after there is something that I hinted at in one of my emails. It's not so much about gathering in groups and paying for some expensive strategic plan, but rather getting out there and doing the work, even if it's just in these little small incremental projects that accumulate over time. So I'm talking a lot and you're listening a lot. What questions or insights or ideas have come to your mind as we've been taking a look at this? I panicked there for a second because I thought I lost you all. Anything that anyone wants to ask or say, reflect on, maybe past members of the DEC?
Hey, Matt, this is Brent. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Thank you for that great overview. I've been kind of out of the loop there for a little bit, so that was helpful to me.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a couple connections. The Estacada Chamber of Commerce is the tourism arm of Estacada. And so when we think of tourism and trying to utilize our beautiful resources out here, we think of connecting them, people that come out for tourism, directly to downtown. So that's a very natural connection for us, which again highlights the need to have viable places to have our tourists visit once we get them out here.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to say is you mentioned Malala, and I think everybody might be aware that as the city council changed the comprehensive plan of Estacada, all the growth is north of the city, way out to the far north urban growth boundary of Estacada, which is Deuce Road. So there's hundreds of homes platted to be built out there, as well as some small commercial entities. It's at least have been zoned for. So again, it just highlights we could become Malala if we don't get way ahead of this and make downtown Estacada the place where Estacadians know about and want to go to, because when you're on the far north end, there's chances are you don't even go to downtown Estacada because you work in Clackamas or Gresham or some other place. So it just highlights the need. And I think downtown the committee is just primed to seize the moment to make Estacada vital and give us that hub that is going to be needed in the decades ahead.
Thank you. I think those are 2 awesome points worth underscoring. So yeah, the chamber is the body that that does the majority of the tourism marketing, but the city and DEC partner with them closely on a lot of things. But yes, thank you for underscoring that. I think that's important to note. And yes, with growth, it's a double-edged sword. We need growth in order to support a vibrant downtown. Without a sort of baseline population and a growing population, that's a threat to something like a downtown or any commercial district. So the growth is great, but as cities not cities, but areas uptown have become zoned for more commercial activity, it will be important to advocate for downtown as that unfolds. So when I say advocate, I mean this is one difference between your average Main Street program and you as the DEC. You should see yourselves in a certain way as advisors to the city council and advocates for downtown. So when there are issues emerging in the city, and I will try and keep you all abreast of those, but as there are things that happen throughout the city, it's sort of our job to look at those issues through the lens of downtown as advocates for downtown and make sure that the city council understands the potential implications for downtown of whatever particular issue it is that they're grappling with, growth or the past year has been difficult in many ways, but we've seen some friction between different, say, demographic groups in Estacada and in the state and in the country. But these are all things that we would keep an eye on and speak to the city council about as they unfold. So thanks, Brent. That's good insight. Maybe one thing just to add to what Brent is saying, one example, big example, would be the mill property. It's about 90 acres and currently dormant. I don't see that changing anytime in the near future, but the comprehensive plan now has rezoned it so that it no longer has to be a heavy industrial site anymore. In theory, someone with a lot of vision and a lot of money could buy that acreage and develop it according to the city's comprehensive plan, which would envision it as another commercial district, another mixed use district with higher density housing and commercial development opportunities. So that's one particular area where I think it could be a real boon to the city's economy, but will need to be developed in a way that complements downtown rather than takes from downtown. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's not a small challenge. But the good news is that any development that occurs in the future on that mill site will have will require a lot of input from the Planning Commission, the City Council, and to the extent that you make your voices heard, also the Downtown Commission. Anything else anyone wants to ask or say? Okay, I do have
hey Matt, sorry, I'm trying to get away from my toddlers so I can talk to you guys.
Okay.
So I guess I feel like that was really helpful to see, and now being in downtown for a few months, almost every single day we have people coming in saying oh my gosh, I had no idea this was here, or oh wow, how long have you guys been here? I haven't been down here in 2 years. And it's frustrating because it's I went to the grocery store and I was wearing a sweater and she's like, oh my gosh, where'd you get that from? I was like, oh, I own the new boutique in town. You should stop by. And she's like, what new boutique? I'm like, it's right across the street from the new Italian restaurant. She's like, what new Italian restaurant? And she works at the grocery store in town. So I understand that I can be a part of the Chamber of Commerce, but part of my, I guess, hesitancy on that is that I already do all my social media marketing, and it feels like the only thing the Chamber of Commerce does is do social media marketing, which I'm doing for myself. So it's an extra cost to me that doesn't seem worth it, in my opinion. So what else can we do to get people coming downtown to see that there are things which will only increase people wanting to open things downtown?
Yeah. Great question. And it's a question that we might table for a future conversation. These are the exact type of conversations that need to be had and then a plan developed and executed. So I'm not going to answer your question, not because it's a bad question, but just because of time in this meeting and that it's probably more appropriate for a subsequent meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Rebecca did have a thought though.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up, because I was actually going to mention Taylor's conversation about the person at the grocery store not knowing there was an Italian restaurant, a new clothing boutique. I think that the problem is twofold. One, we have so many new people moving in that are consumed with, now they have a new commute, they have a new home, it's a new community. How do we then perhaps get into their mailbox as a city saying, da, 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 did you know that we have these fun things downtown, or perhaps local businesses could get together and create some form of a shopping passport, similar to what McMinimans does, to bring new residents into the downtown corridor. But then also the second part of that is something that we deal with being outside of town, is that the people that come out here are almost always from Portland or other metro areas, and they just want to go for a drive. And okay, Estacada is close enough, we'll go. We want to do something that we can't do in Portland, right? Portland has great clothing stores, Portland has all the best restaurants. So it's not, no offense, it's not like Estacada currently is a huge draw for the culinary scene or the fashion scene or the art scene. So they want to go cut down their Christmas tree. They want to go see a farm. They want to go have cider where they're actually pressing the cider. So as an outlying business, I feel that it's my duty, as well as so many other businesses that are out of town, to then welcome people that are visiting the area and then push them to the downtown corridor, because they don't have a clue. 90% of our customers are like, what else is there to do here? I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. They have no idea that there's really much of a town available. So if we had flyers that we could put together with new restaurants, other places with maps to push them, would be invaluable. Because now I'm like, go visit the waffle cart. Oh, there's an Italian place. Do you want to do some shopping? And it's just me, because I have personal relationships with these business owners, just pushing them to see my friends. But it isn't, it could be much more strategic, because there are so many businesses that are on the outskirts of town that really are a draw for people because of all the things they can't get in town.
Yeah. So how do we capture that audience to be customers to both out of town and in town businesses, right? I guess. Thank you. These are great insights and ones that business owners have. Connie.
There's been several times when we have used door hangers and gone around to every neighborhood in the community, and that was a good way to share information about various things, but it's cheap and it's a good way to get the word out. And then several events I've been involved with in town, like the Harvest Festival, the Fungus Festival, we asked people how they heard about us, and Facebook was overwhelmingly the major source of information.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I had a thought when you were speaking and now it escapes me. It'll come back to me. But yeah, those door hangers I think have been big. I think with any marketing, the secret sauce seems to be repetition. I think they say that someone has to come in contact with something like 6 or 7 times before it starts to stick. So we'll have to be relentless and hit from multiple angles. Okay, I'm going to jump into a few more slides and then we will be close to wrapping up. Let's see. Okay. So I did mention that we are a performing Main Street community. We hope to maintain that, but there's a possibility we may get notched down. We don't lose a lot by getting notched down, to be quite honest with you. It's just kind of the badge of honor that we primarily lose. There are a few small perks, but not a whole lot. I've mentioned the difference already between a traditional Main Street organization, which is a nonprofit. We are a city commission. And I've touched a little bit on how that kind of changes things a little bit. It doesn't change a lot, to be honest with you, but it does make you, I think, more of an authoritative body in your interaction with the city and the city council. So again, I guess I'll just say you should see yourselves as advisors and advocates, advisors to the city council and advocates for downtown. So what's our relationship to these other entities? The Chamber of Commerce was mentioned. I think Taylor mentioned the Chamber. So we do see ourselves as close partners of the Chamber, but what's the difference between these two? We're focused exclusively on downtown. We also don't have a membership base, and we don't market any specific set of businesses, but we market the downtown district as a place, as a destination for residents and visitors. I remember what I was thinking when Connie was speaking. One of the things, and I hope to share some of this individual stuff with you because it's really good. There's a group out of Arizona, actually, my home, called the Downtown Development. Oh, now I'm not going to remember, DDA. But anyway, they're a consultant group out of Arizona, and they have all sorts of ideas for downtowns that are doing the work that we're doing. And one of the things that they hit home over and over and over and over and over again is that do not lose your way by constantly trying to think about how you attract visitors, people from out of town. Of course, you don't want to ignore that group, but they say develop your downtown to be the place that the locals want to be. And when your downtown is a happening place that the locals want to be, then the tourism aspect of it will almost just come naturally. So back to this, the relationships between these entities. While we do partner with the Chamber, especially on the tourism piece, the Chamber is focused on the entire city and they're focused on promoting their member businesses, whereas we're focused on downtown exclusively and promoting downtown as a whole sort of place. Hopefully that's enough distinction. We are a commission of the city, so you're not city employees, but you are appointed city representatives now. So I guess just keep that in mind. I don't want to make you overly paranoid, but just think about how you're interacting with people in person and especially on social media, where your comments could be seen by other people and perhaps questioned. You represent the city in some way now as an appointed official. I think it's important to remember that. The Urban Renewal Agency, I want to explain what that is, especially for the new folks to the group. The Urban Renewal Agency is effectively the city of Estacada, but it is legally a separate entity, and it has funding that is separate from the city. It is managed by the city, but the funding that is collected for urban renewal is only used for urban renewal. And what urban renewal is, and I don't really like the term urban renewal, especially when you're in a rural environment like Estacada, but it's focused on the revitalization of what they call blighted areas of cities. That's the term that Oregon statutes use is blighted. It sounds like a pejorative, and I don't care for that word either, but the way I like to explain it is that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a rotten hellhole, but it does mean that there's untapped potential that can be unlocked with private and public sector investment. So urban renewal is that mechanism that a city can use to invest in our case, downtown, strategically in order to try and sort of prime the pump of investment. So Broadway, yes, that was all public dollars, but it does ultimately have an effect on, and a positive effect on the downtown and every property owner downtown that benefits from being in a more attractive and well-maintained environment. Urban Renewal also funds grants to business and property owners who want to enhance their properties. So their grant programs fund up to 50% of a project cost in order to, do things like put in new windows or a new awning, or in some cases, a more comprehensive building remodel. You've seen over on the subway plaza, that was primarily private investment, but did have some assistance from Urban Renewal. And then I've already mentioned a few other examples, the Yo Treats building, the current Clackamas River Outfitters building, the dance studio, the building, former Bank of the West that Taylor and Julie occupy. These all had some urban renewal funding contribution in order to make them happen. Part of the justification for it is that in an area that does have this untapped potential or a pattern of disinvestment or a lack of maintenance over time, the idea, the philosophy is that if it weren't for these grants, the property owners may or may not, probably would not make these investments themselves. So it's that idea of partnership and co-investment in order to buoy confidence and promote future investment in the district so that it becomes a pattern, a positive feedback loop of investment rather than a negative feedback loop of disinvestment and neglect. So that's the idea behind urban renewal. And so these are all close partners: Chamber, City, Urban Renewal. This is real wordy. I don't want to read it, but I did want you to see the text that established the DEC. And the things that I wanted to highlight here were, let's see here. Well, okay, so first and foremost, we adopt our own rules for appointment of officers. So we probably won't get to that this meeting, but we're going to determine what leaders we need. We don't necessarily need the stereotypical chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. We may just determine that we need, a chair and a vice chair so that we have someone to run meetings when the chair isn't there and someone who's sort of in training to be the chair in the future. A secretary is not as important because we can have staff taking minutes in these meetings. And as far as a treasurer goes, we also have front office staff that's maintaining the finances of the DEC. So that role becomes less essential as well. We can have those discussions about what leadership roles we feel are needed in a subsequent meeting. We do have a responsibility to report to the city council quarterly. Justin can probably tell you that we haven't met that. But we should strive to meet that requirement. And then it gets into more responsibilities. A basically says that we're going to use the Main Street program, which we've been discussing, that we're going to recruit and utilize volunteers. C is one that I'll point out. We're only required to do 2 events downtown per year, according to this ordinance: the 4th of July parade, and then 1 other community event that's free to the public. Historically, that's been the Harvest Festival. Other events that were not required would be Estacada Uncorked and the Christmas tree lighting, which is close partnership with the city. We can expand upon those events. We can use those same events and enhance them. We can shift gears completely, but this is the basic baseline requirement that we have from the city council, is to have these 2 events. So pretty minimal, but I think we can and want to do more. I already mentioned this. It's our responsibility to make recommendations to the city council on issues that affect downtown. Even though we won't have, potentially anyway, don't need a treasurer, we'll still look at the funding that's needed to maintain our programming and make a request to the city. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. You can read through that at your convenience if you want to. I'll send this slide deck out to everyone after the meeting. So we can talk about this, I think, next meeting, when we'll try and do some election of leadership positions, but let's have a quick discussion. So feel free to unmute if you have an opinion. Given what I've just shared, what leadership roles at the board level do you see as being essential? Or let me just put it more specifically. Do you think we would want anything besides a chair and vice chair? I'll just have that be the question. Anyone want to have a thought to share?
Just I want you to tell me.
Okay, so since we've got crickets, I think I'll assume that everyone is kind of okay with maybe sticking to a chair and vice chair?
I was thinking actually, Matt. I don't know if you can see me. This is Jenny.
Yes.
But, okay. But I was thinking that it might make sense to break up into, subcommittees. I don't know if that's also part of your thought process for, in addition to chair and vice chair, but it seems like each of us are probably drawn toward or have skill sets that, are appropriate for one of these four pieces. And it seems like that would be an effective approach, is for us to sort of like get into little, silos or groups where we can really, capitalize on those pieces.
Yes. So you are genius, because that's exactly how we would like to set it up and how most Main Street communities set it up. Some only have a board and that's it, but those tend to be exploring and transforming downtowns. Performing downtowns usually have a full sort of ecosystem of subcommittees built out in these four areas: design, promotion, economic vitality, and organization. So one advantage that I see to limiting, the officer roles to just chair and vice chair is that maintains more time and energy, theoretically, for you to also serve on one of these committees, the one that you feel you are best suited to and most interested in. So be thinking about that. I don't know that we need to make assignments right now, but probably next meeting, which is Thursday the 21st, think about what are your strengths, what are your interests, where would you like to serve at the committee level, design, promotion, economic vitality, or organization. If you want to review those things, to explore that a little bit more and figure out where your place might be, I will send this slide deck as well as a couple other links that will be helpful.
Matt?
Does that sound okay?
Matt?
Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, just wondering, if you don't have a treasurer, how do you track the funding and the funds that are developed?
Tracy in the front office maintains through the city's accounting software all of the ins and outs of the money. So it would just be a matter of getting a printout of that every meeting, reviewing it for accuracy, and amending if necessary.
Do you know how much money is currently in the budget or the treasury?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
It's a few $1,000s, right?
If I were going to estimate, that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, watch for the deck and for a couple links to maybe explore which committee you'd like to spend your time. This is the last slide. Some other things that we'll try and flesh out next meeting would be the mission. If this is the current mission, and I like it, but again, this is a new term, a new body of leadership, a new set of ideas, perhaps a new set of priorities. So as far as branding, mission, vision, values, all that kind of stuff, I hate to spend too much time on that, because oftentimes I feel like it's just this intellectual exercise with not a lot of relevance beyond that planning session. It certainly should be, but it often doesn't. So let's have a conversation about mission, vision, values, but not beat it to death. And if you have ideas for how you'd like to rework this mission statement or introduce a new one completely, let's definitely have that discussion, but let's just not have it monopolize a 2-hour meeting. So yeah, next meeting we'll look to elect leadership, have that discussion, mission, vision, values. We'll take a look briefly at sort of where we're at, not only financially, but also just what projects and things are happening right now that the commission wants to have eyes on. For example, the City Council and Urban Renewal Agency right now is considering an urban renewal grant application that is to the tune of 6 figures. This Downtown Estacada Commission should have some input on that application, and so we can, at a high level, take a look at that and maybe formulate some ideas that you'd like to share with the council. And then just generally set some goals and plan for the year ahead. It's a little difficult right now because, of course, we don't know what the future looks like exactly in terms of businesses being open and to what degree they're open, what people's comfort level are with being out and downtown and, you know, living their otherwise normal lives. So we have a challenge in doing this goal setting and planning in that we can't see very far into the future. But I would like to at least talk about what feels important to you all and what we may be able to do with or without a pandemic situation. So if that sounds okay to you, I'm going to unshare here. How does that all sound? A-okay, thumbs up, okay. I will send you, like I said, a few materials to spend some time with. It's not going to be lots of time, but if you do get a chance to peek at it, it may be helpful to just, again, start to wrap your brain around what is Main Street and what are some cool things that other communities have done that we may be able to adapt to an Estacada application. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
Bruce, minutes to bring us up to date. Are there any pending projects or anything that's currently in partway through development that's still carrying over to the new year?
Yeah, good question, Bruce. So the main one that I just alluded to is the owner of the building between the State Farm office and True Value. It's got a red facade. It used to be Lentz Auto Parts way back in the day. Anyway, a pretty neglected building. The owner of that property is proposing to tear it down and build a new mixed-use building with commercial on the ground floor and 6 apartments. And that would be pretty cool. But we're in the process.
That wood structure building I talked to you about.
Yeah, I don't know if this particular applicant has the appetite to get involved in a real complicated project, which probably a CLT project would be. CLT is cross-laminated timber. Anyway, I guess we don't need to get deep into that. But anyway, this applicant is looking for 6 figures in order to make this project pencil out. And that's not impossible, but it also means that Urban Renewal will have to shuffle around funding in future years for other grants. In other words, someone in the future may not get a grant for project X, Y, or Z if this particular project is funded on Main Street.
Is that a project where if they were to provide the 6 figures, that the mixed use potentially retail space in the bottom could be lent out at a below market rate in terms to like pay back to the community?
I mean, so the Urban Renewal Agency could theoretically impose whatever conditions it sees appropriate to make in making that grant. And so if one of the conditions was, okay, we'll grant you $125,000, but we want the lease space to be offered at such and such a rate. I mean, that's theoretically possible. With these projects, the challenging aspect is that you don't want to kill the project by imposing so many, conditions that it makes it less palatable for the developer. So it's a balance, but I agree we don't just write a check with no conditions.
Because it would be a total bummer if you gave the money and then there's vacant spaces in downtown.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it would be a speculative development. I don't think that they have any particular tenant lined up. I know that they don't have a tenant lined up right now. Yeah, we can talk more about that application before next meeting. I can send it out for your review before then. Right now, what the applicant has submitted is very superficial, but that was I shouldn't say by design, but that's basically what I told him to do, because there needs to be a conversation had at the Urban Renewal Agency level about whether or not there's even appetite for this project before we ask the applicant to, you know, spend money on design and do all these other things that are going to be required eventually. But so that's kind of where we're at. The process is very early on right now. The information that you will be reviewing, or if you choose to, is pretty basic. So if you feel underwhelmed after reading it, you probably will be. But that does just know that when you see it, we will be requiring a lot more of the applicant before we would ever agree to write a check for the project. So I'll include my staff report to the Urban Renewal Agency from last Monday. I'll throw that in there as well, and that'll give you an idea of what we would likely want to see from the applicant before we would fund the project.
Matt, what's the current status of the Lakeside development?
So what Bruce is referring to is on the Lakeshore Trail. We have started the design process to build a new trail and stairs and an in-water dock system where people could launch kayaks there close to downtown instead of having to go all the way to Timber or across the river to Milo. The status is that we have a consultant right now working with all the agencies to get it permitted. So we have 60% design done, and we use that body of design work to get permitted with, gosh, there's like a dozen different agencies that you have to go through, all the way from federal down to local, you know, because the Clackamas is a water source. So you have to deal with all of those entities that regulate fresh water sources. You have to deal with the Federal Energy Regulation Commission because of PGE's presence and with their hydroelectric activities on the river. Anyway, there's just a lot of permitting that has to be done, and you need expertise to get through that process. We'll have all of that permitting work submitted by June, and then it will be kind of a wait and see to see what comments or requirements the permitting agencies have. Once we get that back, we will take the plans from 60 to 100% and really focus then on fundraising toward construction.
So we're several years away.
It's not going to happen in 2021. It's not going to be built in 2021, but okay, potentially 2022. I could see construction beginning. Yeah, so that's where that's at. Yeah, we have that grant application. Trying to think if there's anything else going on as far as project-oriented stuff goes. I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, just trying to stay in communication with our businesses through my newsletter to keep as many afloat as possible. There's resources out there, but got to go get them and be pretty aggressive in order to get those resources, financial that is. Other questions before we adjourn for today? Okay, so we'll hope to be back, or we will be back on Thursday, and I hope Julie can join us then, and we'll continue this conversation. So I just thank you for your time and being here today.
Great job, Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.